Here's the brief. News from the world over this week. After Tuesday's big election victory, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now appears to be backing off of his pre-election opposition to a Palestinian state. On Thursday, he told MSNBC he wants a sustainable, peaceful two-state solution if circumstances change. He also told Fox News that he has not retracted any of the things he said in a speech 6 years ago when he called for a solution in which a demilitarized Palestinian state recognizes a Jewish state. In light of his pre-election comments, the White House has indicated that President Barack Obama will seek to bypass Israeli negotiations for a two-state solution and instead turn to the United Nations to press Israel on the matter. And the Islamic State is taking responsibility for the deadly attack on Tunisia's National Bardo Museum, which left 23 people dead and at least 40 wounded. Two men armed with assault rifles gunned down tourists exiting buses on Wednesday. The attackers then charged inside the museum to take hostages before being killed by security forces. In a statement, ISIS describes Wednesday's attack as, quote, a blessed invasion of one of the dens of infidels and of vice in Muslim Tunisia, end quote. Pope Francis sent a telegram addressed to the Archbishop of Tunis, Arroyo, offering prayers for the victims. He called the attack an act against peace and the sacredness of human life. The Holy Father went on to assure the families and the victims of those affected of his continued prayers. Pakistani Christians are mourning the victims of a pair of church bombings in Lahore. 17 people were killed, another 70 were wounded on Sunday. According to reports, congregants blocked the two suicide bombers from entering the churches during Mass, saving many lives while sacrificing their own. On Monday, as many as 10,000 Pakistani Christians took to the streets in protest, forcing public transportation services to shut down and blocking a major thoroughfare. The faithful denounced the attacks and the lack of government protection from terrorists. In Rome, Pope Francis remembered the victims, praying that, quote, the persecution against Christians, which the world tries to hide, might end. And in a shift for the Vatican, the Holy See is acknowledging the need for military intervention against ISIS. The Vatican ambassador to the UN in Geneva presented a joint statement to the Human Rights Council stipulating the need for, as a last resort, military intervention against the Islamic State. Archbishop Silvano Tomasi told the Catholic news agency that the statement, signed by nearly 70 nations, first attempts to foster a new diplomatic approach in order to protect communities from ISIS. The use of military force, he said, is a very last choice. The statement is also significant, according to the Archbishop, because this is the first time the Human Rights Council is acknowledging Christians as a persecuted group. A quick United Nations side note, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon announced that Pope Francis will address the General Assembly on September 25th in New York. You can count on EWTN News to bring you live and complete coverage of the Pope's visit from New York, Washington, and Philly as it unfolds. And after several weeks of military victories against Boko Haram, Nigeria has announced that its coalition force has begun a final onslaught against the jihadist group. Soldiers from Niger and Chad have retaken a key town near Nigeria's border with Niger. This is part of a regional campaign to wrest back control of northeastern Nigeria from the Islamic militants. In heavy fighting, 222 jihadis were killed and one soldier from Niger died, according to officials. The apparent victories are a remarkable turn of events in what's been a 6-year insurgency by Boko Haram. There is still no word on the fate of the more than 200 schoolgirls kidnapped by Boko Haram almost a year ago. Back here in the U.S., Republican businessman and reality television star Donald Trump announced plans Wednesday to form a presidential exploratory committee. Trump has been talking about running for president since the 1980s, But this bid appears to be serious. Trump said he has not renewed his NBC contract for The Apprentice, and he's already putting political teams in place in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, which hosts the first 3 presidential contests. He was in New Jersey, or rather New Hampshire, on Thursday. Never short on self-assurance, the Donald said, "I am the only one who can make America truly great again." Trump is the second major GOP candidate to form an exploratory committee. Retired neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson did so earlier this month. And a new study shows that euthanasia deaths in Belgium have more than doubled in the last 6 years. They account for nearly 1 out of every 20 deaths in that country. The universities of Ghent and Brussels, which oversaw the research, found a growing acceptance of euthanasia since it was legalized in 2002. Given the findings, Ghent University professor Freddie Mortier warns that euthanasia could be an option for health systems with financial shortfalls, like those in America.
When I talk to American physicians, American patients, they are afraid, they are inclined to think that they may be forced or in some way coerced into the option of euthanasia. And I think that given the way in which healthcare is functioning in the United States, that they may be right.
In a related story, France's lower house has approved legislation that would allow deep, continuous sedation until death for patients facing terminal illness. By a vote of 436 to 34, the National Assembly approved the bill. Some lawmakers not voting for the measure said it amounted to legalized euthanasia in disguise. And a Catholic family-owned and operated company has won its lawsuit against the federal government and the HHS mandate. On Monday, Hercules Industries won a permanent injunction from the U.S. District Court in Colorado. The judge ruled that the plaintiffs were protected by the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993. Now, that act forbids the government from placing a substantial burden on the free exercise of religion for a compelling government interest. In the Hobby Lobby case last June, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the act protects certain companies with objections to the mandate. Under the healthcare law, Hercules Industries was forced to provide free coverage for contraceptives, including abortifacients and sterilizations. Hercules founder and co-owner William Newland said the victory has, quote, taught our family that we've been right to put God first and to protect our right to live and work according to our faith. Spiritual treasures come before business tools, end quote. As expected, controversy marched down Fifth Avenue at New York's St. Patrick's Day parade. For the first time, a gay contingent of marchers was allowed to take part in the parade while Timothy Cardinal Dolan served as Grand Marshal. The Cardinal was petitioned by thousands of Catholics to withdraw from the parade after organizers agreed to permit an NBC-affiliated LGBT group to march under its own banner. At the same time, several pro-life groups were denied the right to march. When announced last year, Cardinal Dolan said the inclusion of the LGBT group was a wise decision. On Tuesday, he attempted to stay above the fray.
I'm glad everybody's welcome here. All the, no distinction. They're all welcome, and I'm glad they are. It's a great day of unity and happiness and joy.
The joy was not shared by many gay activists who again protested the parade for only allowing one gay group to march up Fifth Avenue. Also on Tuesday, the mainline Presbyterian Church in the United States approved the celebration of same-sex marriages. In a final vote, more than two-thirds of the church's regional bodies agreed to redefine marriage, or the marriage bond, in its worship book. It will no longer read as the union of a man and a woman, but as the union of two people. With 1.7 million members, the Presbyterian USA denomination is the largest Protestant group in the U.S. to back gay marriage. The United Church of Christ was the first to do so in 2005. And the Chinese government appears to have no interest in the latest Vatican suggestion regarding the selection of bishops. Vatican spokesman Father Federico Lombardi said during a Hong Kong television interview that the Holy See was willing to consider bishop candidates who had been pre-screened by the communist regime. This would be similar to an arrangement the Holy See has with Vietnam. In response, the Chinese Foreign Minister Hong Li said the government desires improved relations, but urged the Vatican to face the historical tradition and reality of Catholics in China. Currently, all bishop ordinations are considered illicit, and the clerics are selected by the government. It's been a theme heavily accented throughout his pontificate. Now Pope Francis has declared a special Jubilee year of mercy. The Holy Father announced the extraordinary Jubilee this past week. He said the Holy Year of Mercy is an opportunity for the Church to make clear its mission of being a witness to mercy. The year will begin December 8th and run through November 20th of 2016, not quite a year. We'll look at the significance of this Year of Mercy and the pontificate of Pope Francis, as well as the Synod, in our next segment. And finally, on a lighter note, and a needed one, it appears the Holy Father was a bit of a party animal in his youth. Francis's best friends, Oscar and Alberto de Arezzo, spoke to the Daily Mail. Now, they reveal the pontiff was part of a gang of boys called the 10 Muchachos, who would try to pick up girls at dances and had some unforgettable house parties. Recalling one such party, Oscar says they raided his sister's wardrobe and all dressed up in women's clothes. I put on a cloak to be Zorro, he said, and Alberto and Jorge, the Pope, dressed up as women. They had no makeup, so they painted their faces with burned cork. Asked if the Holy Father ever had a sweetheart, his best friends say there was only one contender, but Jorge was already feeling a call to the priesthood and very likely figured nothing would come of that relationship. Oscar, Alberto, and Pope Francis are still friends today.